Hey y'all, this is Travis with Hoss Tools, and this is a little segment we do called Garden Goodies. It's just a compilation of short videos that we shoot on our phone throughout the week as we're walking through the gardens, harvesting things, weeding, doing whatever we have to do to maintain a vegetable garden so we can grow our own food. I really hope you enjoy it, and if you have any questions, always put those in the comments below and we'll try to answer them for you. I tell you, I've been really impressed with this Halo canary melon. First time I've ever grown any canary melons, and considering we're in the middle of summer, slap dab in the middle of the heat and humidity, these things look pretty good. Got some nice ground cover there, got flowers everywhere, all over the place in here. Not much disease, a little bit but not a ton. This is a powdery mildew resistant variety, and get some pretty nice fruits in there. Bees, honeybees are out here. If you can see that little guy right there, they're out here working. There they are, out here working these flowers pretty hard this morning. I want to show you the largest melon I have out here, I think so far. This guy right here, and as far as I know, these things are supposed to turn a little more brighter yellow when they get ready. But I also want to show you how we know when melons are ready. Let me see if I can pull back some of this foliage here. Alright, you see that little thing right there? That's what we call the curlicue, also known as the tendril. And any kind of melon, whether it be these canary melons, watermelons, cantaloupes, any honeydew, anything, that is what you want to look at when you want to determine if these things are ready or not. So you can see that thing there is still pretty green. When this melon gets ready, that will dry all the way up back to that stem there. So we're going to keep our eye on this curlicue here, and when it dries all the way back, it should be pretty close to ready, so shouldn't be too long. And Dad, aka the watermelon expert, he says the first couple ones that get ready, you need to wait a few days after the curlicue dries up. So we'll do that, and got quite a few more in here. Here's one, isn't quite as big as that first one, and I don't know, you can't see on the video, but there's at least 15 or 20 amongst all that foliage there. And this was kind of just an experiment to see if we could grow these in the middle of summer, and it looks like it worked out pretty well. We're gonna get some nice little canary melons out of here. I've never tasted a canary melon, but I'm really looking forward to it. So if you need a melon you can grow during the middle of summer that can take the heat, take the humidity, this one here definitely fits the bill. Well folks, it's time for an update on the Sunflower Showdown 2020. And if you haven't been following along, this was a little competition that was going on with a few other YouTube channels. The Naked Hog, Adler Farms, 4 Kids in a Farm, Cog Hill Farms, and Deep South Homestead. And the goal here was to grow the tallest sunflower and the one with the biggest head on it. And we babied these puppies along and tried our best, but it looks like they have maxed out at height and they've done all they're going to do. We still got some pretty blooms on there, but we also got some blooms that are kind of toast there. So I don't think, it doesn't look like they're going to get any taller. In fact, they're kind of getting shorter because they're just loaded down at the top with all these blooms that's making them fall over, like you see there. Now, I don't know what I could have done different to make them get a little taller. I don't think I'm going to win this competition. Maybe I shouldn't have pruned those bottom stalks there, although I do have to say that looks mighty pretty and clean along there. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. Maybe that you know, kept me from getting as tall as I'd like. I will say the leaves on these things are still really big. but they're pretty. Had a fun time growing them. I want to show you my official entry here. So I took some loppers to get a best accurate measurement, and I cut one of what I thought was the tallest ones with the loppers, and I've got it laid out over here with my tape on the ground so we can have an official measurement for my entry in the Sunflower Showdown 2020. Just so everybody knows I'm not cheating. There's the end of the stalk, there's the beginning of the tape, and we walk down along here, and we got it stretched out as far as we can stretch it, and we see right there 9 feet. Now I really expected these things to get on up 12 feet or so, but you know, we'll just have to try again next year to get one taller. So there's my entry. My tallest one is 9 foot tall, and as far as the head diameter goes, this was the biggest head I could find in there, and if we look at that, I'm gonna call that 8 inches in diameter on the head there. So there's my official entry. Not going to be a winning entry, but at least it's documented here, and I'm sure some of these other channels are going to do a much better job than I did at growing a tall sunflower. I don't know if the heat got to them and just made them start blooming before they should have. I just don't know. I'm going to have to go back to the drawing board on my giant sunflower growing skills, and maybe use a different technique next year. I do know one thing: these things get tall like this, even though we've got drip on them and it's been raining, you about can't keep enough water to them. You could leave the drip running all the time and they would just soak it right up. These things love the water, and maybe better to grow them in a little bit of a shaded spot, not out here just in the direct middle sun. I don't know. If you got any tips out there, any ideas what I might have did wrong, for you giant sunflower growing experts, definitely let me know. We're gonna just try to do better next year. So it's hot outside, it's hot everywhere, everybody knows that, and today was harvest day around here, and even though it's hot, we still got some stuff producing in the garden. So we've been picking out here, and I know this looks like a lot of produce, and this is what we'll use for our weekly vegetable bags. This is kind of my packing station here on this old trailer. Well, this is what we'll be bagging up for our weekly vegetable bag delivery coming up in a few days. It's getting a little dark out there, I don't know if y'all can tell, but got everything picked, and now we'll sit in the shade here and bag it all up. So even though it's hot, this is a decent bit of production we're still getting from the garden. Not a ton of variety here, but still getting a good bit of stuff. Let's start over here with our eggplant. Now excuse me, if you've been following along, we didn't have much luck with our eggplant and pepper plants this year, so we bought some from a nursery. So I don't know what variety of eggplant this is, but it's been a good one for us, and they've been really good to eat. The crazy thing is, I was told this was all one variety, but I'm getting a little bit of variation here as far as my fruit size and even fruit color. Look at that guy right there compared to this guy right here. So a lot of them have that shape right there, more of kind of a bell shape, and then some of them have more kind of a traditional eggplant shape, more kind of smooth like that. So decent bit of variation there, which is strange to me considering they were all supposed to be the same variety. But either way, we get some good eggplant harvest there. Moving on over here, we got our bell peppers. Bell peppers still kicking along good. Now they'll go in a little bit of a production lull in August when it gets real hot, and then they'll catch a second wind come fall. So we'll leave the plants there. We'll keep watering and fertilizing them with the drip system, and keep getting some good harvest here. Nothing wrong with that right there. Nice size bell pepper. Banana peppers here, still producing good. Got a whole 7-gallon bucket of those, and nothing wrong with those right there. Tasty little treats. And then over here is what we showed you on yesterday's video. We got our okra that we just picked. We got almost a whole bucket of jambalaya, and then we got all these different OP varieties in here. We got some Silver Queen okra, some Cowhorn okra, so some Star of David okra, and some red burgundy okra. So even though things have slowed down quite a bit, you know, no more tomatoes. We still got a few squash and cucumbers. We're waiting on the last round, but things have slowed down a good little bit, so not a ton on the trailer today as far as the harvest goes, but enough to keep the vegetable bag operation running for at least another week. And we'll probably go into a little bit of a break. We usually do around August, September, but taking advantage of what we can get from the garden right now. So we just got through harvesting all of our South Anna butternut squash. This is my second buggy full. I got the first buggy full up here on our drying rack. Ended up with a pretty decent harvest. Can't complain about it. We'll have a YouTube video coming up soon, giving you a little more details on the harvesting process and all that good stuff. I just want to show you how big some of these are. Now, some of these are just fairly average size. Like that's probably a average size butternut there, like you'd find in the grocery store. But some of these guys are huge. Look at that guy right there. That thing weighs probably close to 10 pounds. Another monster right there. Can't even hardly fit that one in the frame. So some really nice fruits there. See a little bit of variation as far as, you know, how skinny the neck is versus the kind of bulb at the bottom. Some of them are a little more stocky. Some of them look kind of like this guy, maybe like a traditional butternut looks. A few tiny ones there, those that eat just as good, but super happy with the production vigor on this variety here. So once we've cut them all, gathered them all, put them in the barn here, put them on our storage rack. And we'll talk more about the storage rack on our YouTube video, but this is where we keep potatoes, garlic, onions, sweet potatoes, winter squash, just about anything that goes in dry storage. We put it on this rack here so it stays nice and cool, shaded with good airflow. And like I said, that was the first round there. That was the first buggy full, and then we've got about, you know, that much left here in the buggy. So almost 2 whole racks will be full of winter squash or butternut squash on my storage rack here. And we'll eat a good many of these. We'll put some in our weekly vegetable bags. These things right here store super well. Should store at least 6 months sitting out here. Just give them some space there. We don't want to stack them on top of one another, and we'll have food going well into the winter with these guys.
The perfect cover crop to fill that void when your peppers, tomatoes, your spring crops are gone, and you've got that void between there and when you need to plant your fall crops is iron clay peas. What makes iron clay peas so great is you don't need no kind of fancy equipment to get rid of them when it's time to turn them back into the soil. These stems are easy to mow down with a lawnmower. You can take your tiller or whatever and work them back into the soil. No need for a big fancy tractor or anything. So if you're limited on equipment, this even makes this more attractive. Now let me tell you a little bit about iron clay peas. As you probably well know, they are a legume, so they attract nitrogen. Man, they can put anywhere up to 120 pounds of nitrogen back into your soil. And they work great for that void of when you get through your summer crops until the winter crops start. Now our winter crops that we like to grow are cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, all the cold crops, which like a lot of nitrogen. Now these peas are in a different family from these, and they set them up nicely because we got all that nitrogen and biomass back into the soil to kickstart those cold crops such as cabbage, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, collards, any of those. So it is a perfect cover crop for that. Now the way I do it is I don't put any inputs into my cover crops. They got to fend for themselves because they got to pay for themselves. When I plant these, I water them one time to get them up. I don't water them anymore after that. I let them fend for themselves because that's what cover crops do. Cover crops give back. We don't put a lot into them. I seeded these at the recommended seeding rate, watered them one time to get them up, and then I let them go. And they're looking great. They grow real quick, so you can tell I don't have any weeds in there. It's smothering all the weeds out. It's going to put a lot of biomass back in the soil, and better than that, it's going to give me that nitrogen and give me a head start on growing those those cold crops in the fall that we all love.
I'll see all that popping up out there on that bare ground, that's not weeds, folks. That is buckwheat. Got this little spot right here, piece of one of our bigger plots out here. This is probably 20 foot wide, 40 foot long, something like that. That's where we had our second succession planting summer squash. We had some max pack cucumbers in here. Got all that cleaned out, and this is cover crop season down here in South Georgia, so we got some buckwheat down. I just planted this about 3 days ago, and it's coming up really good, filling in nicely. It's up here on the kind of top of this hill. This is not necessarily the most level plot. Up here on top, it's a little slower to germinate because it's not quite as wet up here as it is down there at the bottom of that slope, but this will fill in here pretty soon within the next day or so. We like to plant our cover crops thick, and this buckwheat is a great one if you just got a pretty short window. It usually matures in anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks, probably closer to 4 weeks, considering how hot it is down here in South Georgia. And buckwheat, in my opinion, is one of the easier, maybe the easiest cover crops to turn over and incorporate. So once it blooms, we'll let the bees love this stuff, we'll let the bees work on it for a couple weeks. We don't want it going to seed, so usually you have about 2 weeks from flower to when the plant starts making some viable seed. So we'll let it flower for a couple weeks, let the bees enjoy it, and then we'll turn it in. I've got some new sunflower varieties that I'm trying to see if I want to add them to our seed lineup, and so I'm gonna start those from transplants. Those will take a few weeks to get going. So in the meantime, we'll have this buckwheat doing this thing, then we'll turn it in and we'll put us some sunflowers right here for the fall. So if you've got a short little window, or you don't have a lot of equipment to turn in a cover crop, you don't need a big mower. You can turn this in with a push mower and a tiller. You can tarp it. Really, really simple, easy, quick summer crop, this buckwheat here. So if you've been following along our videos, you know we're doing an okra trial in this plot here, comparing the all-powerful jambalaya to some of these open pollinated varieties. Now, we've done this trial many times before. We kind of knew the results coming into it, but it's always good to kind of show everybody on video how much more productive this jambalaya hybrid is than some of these OP varieties. So we've got, start from the end here, Cowhorn, Red Burgundy, Silver Queen, Star David, all OP varieties, and we got 4 rows of our jambalaya here. Now the first thing you'll notice is the jambalaya stays shorter at a much more manageable height than some of these others do here. I'll show you the production in a minute. So those 4 are our OP. Here we've got our hybrid jambalaya. Now, I usually like to pick these, you know, every 2 to 3 days. I've been out of town for a few days, so it's been about 4 or 5 days since I picked them. But I just went through here and picked all of it. And I got the jambalaya in one bucket, and I got all the OP varieties in one bucket. And I'll show you the big difference here. So there's the jambalaya right there. That's a 7-gallon bucket, almost all the way full from 4 rows. And there's all the OP varieties combined. I didn't separate them out for the sake of this. Some of the OPs are a little more productive than others. The Cowhorn probably being slightly the most productive. But you can see there, it's not even close. At least twice as much okra from the jambalaya, 4 rows of it, than the 4 rows of the OP stuff. Now, that's not to say this is not great okra right here. We love these varieties. They taste really good. That Cowhorn's great because you can pick it at much longer lengths and it'll stay tender, whereas the jambalaya needs to be picked at all about that size right there. Another thing even to consider here is that the jambalaya gets tougher at those big lengths like you see there. So a lot of that I had to throw on the ground just because it would have been too tough to eat. So if I would have picked every single pod and put every single pod in the bucket, we'd have even more jambalaya here. But this is just what would actually be edible. So lots of difference there between hybrid production and OP production. Now, of course, the disadvantage is you can't save your seed from this because it's a hybrid. You can save your seed from this if that's something you like to do. But if you're going for production, there's not an okra variety out there that can beat this jambalaya here.